How do conservatives feel about this, and is there going to be a backlash from them? They, remember, wanted full repeal in the beginning and then said something that would be very, very market-friendly. This appears to be neither. But again, we're still early in this process. Former Nevada GOP Chair Amy Tarkanian. We've got Fox Business's Connell McShane and the Daily Caller News Foundation's editor-in-chief, Chris Bedford. So, Connell, to you first on what we're looking at here. There are going to be a lot of people angry on both sides, which you could argue is a sign of progress. But others are saying, wait a minute, we fought so long and hard for 7 years plus for a skinny repeal?
No, the Jenny Craig special, as Adam says, I think that makes a lot of sense, that argument, that they have every right, those conservatives, to be angry if nothing gets done here. I mean, at this point, I think we've proven over the last week or so that Mitch McConnell, just from a tactical perspective, can never be counted out. He was able to get that vote to bring the bill to the floor yesterday. But if you just stop and think about what really happened in that vote, is that it was a vote not necessarily on a piece of legislation, but it was a vote to talk about the legislation, and it barely passed. They had to use everything they had politically to get it there, including the vice president. So just mathematically now, yeah, maybe he can do something like that again, but it seems awfully tough. It really does. You
know, I know there are disparate groups to satisfy Amy and all of this, but the end result is very little change, even if something is voted on. Now, maybe that's the nature of the beast, but I almost think that a skinny repeal is not going to be better than no repeal or no change at all. What are your thoughts?
Well, I would actually disagree with that. I am actually in favor of Senator Paul's suggestion of repealing this and then bringing everyone to the table for the next 2 years, including the Democrats. So then that way they can't...
No, that one, don't hear me wrong. I think that would be a good strategy. I just don't see the support for it. So if the end result is what is sort of looking like a vanilla version of that, then what good is it? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Right, but it's disappointing to see even our own Republicans and our own Nevada Senator Heller not following through with the original Senate bill, barely making it through the procedural amendment or to move forward and even have the discussion. And that way then it would force everyone to have a seat at the table. That way there's no more obstructionists. You can't have people complaining on the Republican side or on the Democrat side. Everyone has to start over.
You know, what we're left with, Chris, is a watered-down health care measure, if we're to get one at all, and already talk of a watered-down tax plan that might not include tax cuts for everyone. So what is going on here? I thought these guys were in charge. They had the run of the table. What are they doing?
Well, you see, the conservative groups here in D.C. that have been pushing back against Obamacare for years and fundraising a lot of money off it, by the way, they're kind of beaten down. I've spoken with them about these watered-down versions or these compromised versions. I say, do you like it? And they say, no. I say, well, you fight against it. And they say, no, we're happy really with anything. What senators like Alaska's Republican senator should really worry about is that Donald Trump won her state by 50,000 votes. And people from Alaska to Massachusetts, where they elected Scott Brown, show that dissatisfaction amongst the voters with Obamacare is extremely high. And I'm worried. I think the skinny bill is the most likely way to get through. Just repeal the individual mandate and some of the taxes and the corporate mandate and business mandate and get that through so they can start it. But the worry here is that Republicans in the House will tinker with it, Republicans in the Senate, and everyone's just going to try and get their fingerprints on a yes vote and a no vote and then go back to their district and say, hey, guys, I tried. It's not my fault.
Right. Lisa Murkowski was the Alaska senator along with Susan Collins, who voted even against this procedural thing. Susan Collins was consistent because she had done the same back in 2015. Lisa Murkowski, that was a change of sentiment there. But what are they left with if they come with a vanilla version of this and now they proceed to tax cuts, and no less than the president is saying, put the emphasis on middle class, which is fine, but again, they weren't necessarily going to be across the board.
It's probably the biggest story of the day. You know, big picture is the president's comments to the Wall Street Journal about tax cuts for the rich and that they may end up being tax hikes for the rich. That's a pretty big story, given what this president came in promising to do. But, you know, it's a new world now, and, you know, from a market perspective, and you and Stuart were talking about, it's interesting, markets can still hold up and have held up to this point and can still in an environment that's seen to be business friendly, which is what this environment is seen, because other things outside of that are still positive. In corporate earnings, there's probably more concern about interest rate policy than anything else, but markets can still hold up in that environment. So if you get rid of taxes that are related to Obamacare, you cut the corporate tax rate a little bit, and you do have some middle-class tax cuts that are put in there. I do see the logic of the White House in that you still have a stock market that's holding up. up and an economy that is seen as doing okay, and that's something that you can hold on to here. I mean, you got to take some wins where you can get them, I think.
I think that's the prevailing sentiment. I think you're right about that. I don't necessarily agree with it, but Amy, when I see that sort of sentiment building here, something is better than nothing. Something on the reform front with health care is better than nothing. Presumably some tax cuts better than no tax cuts, even if they leave out a swath of the wealthy folks. The feeling seems to be that we're still getting tax cuts. So that settling seems to be the theme. What do you think of that?
Yes, absolutely, because once again, here in the state of Nevada, you're going to have 14 out of the 17 counties for the next enrollment period that are going to be left without any options at all for health care. We're not seeing our premiums being lowered at all. I come from a family of 6. Our premiums have gone up 300%, our deductibles 500%, and our copays for specialty doctors 400%. Hardworking, middle-class American families cannot continue that route. It's putting us into a hole that we're not going to be able to climb out of.
You know, Chris, the strategy here seems just get stuff done, and I can understand that. I think Connell touched on that. Just put a win, a victory, something legislatively. But I often wonder at what cost. I mean, the most substantial tax cuts in history have had the most dramatic market effect. Whatever we're seeing on the tax cut front here, leaving aside the health care debate for the time being, it won't be substantial. It doesn't sound like it's going to be substantial. I'm not poo-pooing it. I'm just saying it is not Reagan-like. It's not even JFK-like. So how would conservatives feel about that, especially going into the midterms?
Yeah, I think you're right. And one of the issues here is we see these terms tossed around like moderate Republicans, and they're applied to Senator Collins, Senator Murkowski, people like that, who are saying that they won't go for any Obamacare change or tax cuts or any kind of bill that, for example, defunds Planned Parenthood or rolls back the mandate. Now, these people are called moderate, but really they're liberal, and that's what Mitch McConnell's having to deal with. But Donald Trump came in and said, listen, guys, he kind of came in on the anti-Wall Street streak, on a populist streak. People thought that was going to go away because he brought so many Wall Street financiers and bankers into his administration. The question is, who has the power? And it's going to be extremely difficult to get anything done. And remember, Ronald Reagan probably wouldn't have gotten anything done had he not been shot. And everyone had to get around and say, oh, geez, we have to let the president pass something here. It took a bullet to get his tax reforms through.
You're actually right about that. He was shot in March, and the tax plan was stumbling. But that rallied certainly the base, and it even got those Southern Democrats at the time, the Boll Weevils, to consider a sort of a joint deal to get taxes down. But history would have been very different without that. Guys, I want to thank you all very, very much.